Hi there viewers, I'm the Extraordinary Tourist, otherwise known as David Arundel and sometimes known as the Lazy Animator. And this video will be my behind the scenes work in progress video for my animated short called Runaway featuring George the Knight. Now, as you can see here, this is the animated short. I'm not going to play it in this video. If you'd like to see it, there'll be links to it in the description elsewhere and you can go and watch that. This is just going to be my long, probably rambling explanation as to how it came about. And obviously this is my entry into Reallusion's Animation at Work competition for 2022. But anyway, just to give you the backstory, the whole idea for this started because I wanted to animate a dragon. I've never animated a dragon before, but all my life since I was a child in school, I've been drawing dragons, and you can see even on my desktop here, just behind here, this dragon here is a dragon that I doodled in biro on a notepad something like 25 years ago during a business course I was doing at the time. Anyway, that's how it started, and I just wanted to animate a dragon, so I set about designing my dragon, and this is what I came up with. So here we go. This is the dragon here, and you can see some of my drawings trying to work out how this dragon might look from different views on the head. And I did do a number of sketches before these. This is just the final sketches. Obviously I didn't scan those in. It was done in an actual real sketchbook and not digitally, because I actually prefer to draw on pencil or with pencil on paper. That's what I ended up with, and from there I just wanted to see it move. All I did was put that one drawing that you saw before into Cartoon Animator using the template. I think it was for a cat, and this is actually, I think it's a catwalk that it's doing, because it's got this sort of tail swaying around like a cat, and the ears are part of that bone template as well. The wings are bones that I added to the template, and you can't actually animate them using motions designed for the template, because obviously those bones aren't part of those motions, but they're good for just having up there, and they move along with the shoulders, get that sort of rocking motion, and it just works with the walking. And seeing this also led me to go towards the style of keeping all my drawings hand-drawn using the original sketches, rather than digitally inking them and cleaning them up and making them look a lot more polished and cartoony. I do like the look, and I like it when you can actually see that a character or a drawing or something looks like a real physical pencil and paper type look, rather than the more polished, clean digital look that you get with a lot of modern cartoons these days. So that was that. From there, I went on to designing my backgrounds, because that was another pain point that I have. I'm generally more of a character artist. I don't do backgrounds very often, and when I do, they're usually really simple backgrounds. And looking at the dragon, I thought, what if I just do something really simple, just a single scene animation that's a kind of joke with just one background. And I came up with the concept that you see in the final animation, which is just a dragon chasing a knight. They get to a rope bridge and things happen at the rope bridge. That's where the sort of joke happens, and that's pretty much it. And obviously when you've got a knight, it makes, if you know the story of St. George and the Dragon, that's what I sort of latched this onto, and that's how my character became known as George. So it is intended to be a version of St. George, and this is of course a version of the dragon, but it's a dragon drawn in my style, the way that I draw dragons. And as I said, I've been drawing dragons forever, so I have a particular style that is loosely based on European dragons, and just generally looks the way I draw dragons, I guess. I don't know how I can best describe it. There you go. So I had this idea of just having the dragon pursuing the knight along a forest path to get to the rope bridge. So obviously I had to design that background, and that's what we've got here. This is an early work in progress of the background design. And as I said, I'm not a background artist, so as you can see I took some inspiration from some of the artists that are doing backgrounds for Cartoon Animator. But as you can see, I took inspiration from that in order to get my background together, and here we go. This is the test I did with the dragon, just walking through the background to show this finished scene off with its little bit of parallax scrolling in the castle and all that in there. And seeing this definitely sort of spurred me on to keep going. I was really happy with how this looked. That was that. And next up, once I had my background, I had to design myself a knight. So these are pretty much all the drawings I did to design my knight. See, this is the first page of drawings. This is the final drawing that I did for the body and his weapons. So he does actually have an axe as well. This was to get the A pose for rigging the character. And as usual, I used my one sprite method of rigging this character. So this is the only drawing I had to do to rig the entire character, or at least this drawing and the one before it, because this is the head that I used. And here you can see this is actually rigging together the template using the 3/4 dummy template that comes with Cartoon Animator. Once I had that, I went through, see that's what partial rig for the dragon there, getting the sprites together. I actually rigged both characters before I coloured them in, so they were already rigged and walking around, and then I went back into Critter and coloured them afterwards. So these are some of the wing sprites for the dragon. Yeah, that's the cat template that I use. And there's George rigged up, ready to go. And that's the sprite that I used to do his face rigging, axes and swords. See, this is some of my promotional images for work in progress that I did. That was after I coloured George, so you can see that image before he was all rigged up and posable before I even coloured him in. That was afterwards. As I said, I really wanted to keep this drawn style. We can even see that I haven't erased any of the lines in my sketches. They're all over the characters. And I believe that that's very much something that I do with my artwork and my paintings that I've done in the past. I don't rub out or erase my construction lines. I like to keep them in there. I just feel it adds a bit of texture to the characters and makes them look a bit more hand-drawn and less clinical, if you like. Here we are in Cartoon Animator, and this is my entire animation set up with the characters all ready to go, and they've all been animated. I just thought I'd give you a quick look at this background in 3D mode just to show you the different layers that it has. And if we just spin it around, you can see all the different layers there, how it's put together, and all of that is entirely my own artwork as I showed you. Show you some other features like the bridge here at this point of the animation is all one prop, but once you get to the section where it all falls down up here, this version of the bridge, I turned the handrails into multi-sprite props. So I just click on a handrail there so you can have a look in at the different sprites. If we look in here, you can see if I change that, you'll see it can either be a handrail or a left or right pole, so that I can make this bridge collapse the way I do. And the actual bridge collapse is done entirely with deforming the props. There's no additional sprites to do that. It's just all done through deforms. And all the animation on the characters, a lot of it is done with existing motions, like the dragon, this running motion that it has here. I believe that's an existing dog running motion. When you get to here and you see the dragon slide in, that's totally a cat getting to a halt. Wings are completely animated with sprite changes. There's no deforms in that at all. It's just the bone moves, and then I change sprites, and then I even add an extra bit of wing to the top that's not part of the dragon rig itself. It's an attached accessory to make the wings look even bigger. And then you'll see up here, this jump is actually a modified cat leaping jump that I just modified so that it would land in the right place. You'll probably get a better look at that if I go totally a cat leaping up. This dragon rig works really well with cat and dog motions. You can see the only artwork that's not mine are these dust and skid explosions that you see. They're actually created by Dex Art that I got from the marketplace. So that explosion there, and when you see up here, the dragon coming into a skid stop. You see there's a skid mark gravel kicking up as he skids in, and I also use that skid for the knight when he comes up to the bridge as well. Again, all of these, the knight's motions, like this running one here, just from the Mission Moves pack, it's literally exactly as it appears, and the skid to a halt out of the Mission Moves pack. And this look around comes from another pack, I'm not sure which. I just modified it slightly, fit my knight doing what he does. And you'll notice my knight only has one angle, but it's not an issue to have him turn left to right. You sort of fill in the blanks when you flip. And I did pay attention to the detail of the sword flipping to the other side when he turns in the final animation, just not in this particular one, this version of it. And again, when you see him run over the bridge and start bashing into the bridge, that particular action, chopping action, is actually from an occupations pack where I think it's a modified hammering in a nail action that I used, which is why his hand is holding the top of the bridge pole there, because in the actual original action the hand was leaning against a wall while the character, or the motion of the character, was hammering in a nail. So I modified that so he could do his chopping motion, and the bridge falling apart, the dragon comes in. Take that, dragon, I've won. I'm the winner, I'm the winner. Bye-bye, dragon. Bye-bye. You see, at this point, I was never happy with my own voice for the knight speaking, because to me it feels jarring, and my voice doesn't really suit the character. And on top of that, I don't know how many Aussie knights there were back in medieval times, so the Australian voice accent doesn't really go with it either. So it was doubly jarring for me. And I ended up keeping all my sort of breathing and other sort of sounds as part of the animation, and then going with Replica Studio's voices. So quickly bring that in to show you. This is Replica Studio. It's basically only a short line, couple of lines that he has, and coincidentally the character in Replica Studios that had the most appropriate voice is also called George. You can see here, this is the voice I went with if I play it.
Take that, dragon. I win. Victory is mine. Goodbye, dragon. Goodbye.
And I was really happy to find that voice, because it's a much better voice than my Australian voice, I can tell you. So that's where the voice came from. I actually got to this point without a storyboard, but in the end I had to actually do a storyboard to keep myself on track. So we'll bring that up. So this is my storyboard, and I actually created this in a new storyboarding app that I found. This is a PDF version of it, but I'll show you just quickly the website that I used to create it. Right, so I just wanted to give this website a bit of a plug, because I was really impressed with it. You can trial it for free, but it's not free to use after your 14-day trial, but it's not expensive. It's $10 a month roughly, and you get a really good tool. But anyway, this is my storyboard, which, as I said, I had to do to keep myself organized because of that being a single scene, and Cartoon Animator doesn't have the ability to set multiple cameras. It only has one camera, which means all the different shots I had to literally set up a camera, export that shot, and then destroy that shot to set up another camera or another shot. Otherwise, to be able to keep every single shot that I needed, I would have to keep saving multiple copies of this one file just for the camera shots. But here we go. This is my storyboard, just quickly. I won't bore you too much with this, but you can see these are my various shots, and pretty much what's in here is what ended up in the final animation. The only thing that didn't end up is I had the dragon being a little more expressive and even breaking the fourth wall in this last shot to look at the camera, but the dragon itself, I never rigged up the face or head to be able to do anything with it. It's a completely static sprite. The dragon doesn't even have a separate Cartoon Animator head. It's all part of the body. So if you look closely, you'll notice the dragon never actually blinks throughout the whole animation. But it's not needed for what I did, and I prefer the ending that I went with, where the dragon leaps over and basically continues the chase. But this was really worthwhile, kept me organized and meant that I could get the actual animation for this whole thing done over 4 days. It took me to set this scene up, and then it took me another 2 days to edit and do all the audio sound design that you see in the final animation. One thing I do want to show you is a little bit more detail on George. I think I can do it from here without having to get out of this project. If we take George into the character composer, I just want to show you that he actually does have a 360-degree head, which doesn't get a lot of play in the finished animation, but he does turn his head slightly more to the side when he's running. So if I open the head creator thing here, editor, and obviously he's got bone hands as well. Taxing the things today, I'll shut down the storyboard. So this is the head in here, and I just wanted to show you. The head is fully sprite-based head. It took me less than maybe a couple of hours, 2-3 hours to rig it fully. And you'll see turns quite nicely to the side there. And looking up and down. Going up. I just wanted to show you this, just the sense that you don't always need to have a front-facing head to get a head that can turn like that. You'll notice he turns pretty good when he turns quickly, but if you see it go slow, it doesn't look quite nearly as good. But you would never do a slow head turn like that when you're animating with the character anyway. So it doesn't matter so much. But if for a quick head turn, you don't even notice that his face distorts over this one dot here. When you do it quickly, it works for all the different angles. So I just wanted to show that he's a bit more of a complicated rig than what he appears in the actual animation. And you'll see I've only used the standard 9 points and added this one extra one to mark where the head actually flips. Otherwise it's the same as my one sprite rig where all of the sprites are derived from that one single sprite. And I used my head rigging project that uses a morph-based head to generate all the face sprites, which saves a lot of time not having to draw all those face sprites. And I think that's pretty much it for inside Cartoon Animator. So we'll just do a quick look at my video editing process, and I think we'll be done. Here we go. So this is Shotcut. Pretty much works like most editors. It's a little bit different with how its timeline works in places, but for the most part it's pretty easy to get into. If you've used other editors, you'll be able to find your way around this, and you can see all my clips are up here, and I can actually click on these and they'll come up in the play window just here. These titles here I did using canva.com just because Shotcut, while you can do titles in Shotcut, sometimes it's just easier to go out into graphics software and make a graphic to put over the top in your video editor, especially if you want something a little more decorative with a few more fonts in it like this. It's just easier to go out into graphics software and make the title there. But as you saw in Cartoon Animator, I did have that whole scene play from start to finish, but the way I edited things is I didn't just export that one scene and then do all the cuts in my editor. As I was saying, I had to use multiple cameras in Cartoon Animator, so I had to set up a camera, export that shot, and then set up a new camera, and some of those new cameras would destroy my setups for the older cameras, and the only way I'd be able to keep them is if I kept making duplicate copies of the file, but I didn't want to keep doing that just for each camera shot. So if Cartoon Animator 5 has the ability to set up multiple cameras, that would be awesome, but Otherwise, this was how I did it. And the reason why I needed to do that was if I'd have just exported one wide shot of the whole scene, when I started zooming in my editor program, you'd lose resolution. So you can see, say, in the wide shot, I think this one's a wide shot, a reasonably wide shot. You see if I get closer in on that, normally if I was to zoom in on here, let's zoom in 100%, you'll see eventually, we zoom in for a close-up on the knight, you'll see he's starting to get pixelated and whatever, and that's what would happen if I'd have just done that on the timeline down here. So for what I did, get back to zoom to fit, you'll see this is what it looks like exported straight out of Cartoon Animator. You'll notice my background is actually gone blurry, and that's because even in Cartoon Animator that's started to pixelate, but I actually don't mind it because it actually gives a kind of shallow depth field effect the way that's worked out, so it doesn't actually look as much like it's pixelated as I'm doing a trick with the lens, so I didn't worry about it too much. So that's how that worked, all of these individual scenes. A couple of the running ones you'll see in the timeline. It's the same running scene, just looped over and over. So it's just that section. And if you look at it, it just completely loops 4 times to get that running motion. George didn't have to loop because he ran that whole length, and it gave me enough time to just follow him there. But the dragon only takes about 3 steps or something before it gets to the bridge, so I really needed to loop that one. But I'm not going to go into this into the editor in too much detail. The only reason I'm bringing you in here is to show you all this sound design. All this light green is all the sound design that I've done for this animation, and I can tell you this is way more than I normally do. Normally I have maybe 3 audio tracks at most, but here I've got 6, and it's pretty much filled up most of the audio on most of the tracks, other than the actual dialogue, which is myself and Replica. The sound effects all come from Freesound. They're all public domain sounds from Freesound. And I used 2 music tracks, which both came from YouTube's Creator Studio, Music and Sound Studio. And I think that's pretty much all I have to show you. So that's the story behind how my animation Runaway came to be, which is a tale of George the Knight that you don't normally hear about in the tales around the campfire, when St. George didn't quite beat the dragon, and perhaps it got the best of him on a couple of occasions too. So there you go. I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.